Why do the chicken coops only have 2 doors? Because if they had 4, they would be chicken sedans. Oh my gosh.
What do you call a laughing motorcycle? A Yamaha. A Yamaha.
Who is the greatest babysitter mentioned in the Bible? David. He rocked Goliath to sleep.
At what time of day was Adam created? A little before Eve. Get out of here.
What do you call a cow with no legs? Ground beef.
All right, what do you call a fish with 2 knees? A 2-knee fish. I know, it took me a little long. Late.
A cop just knocked on my door and told me that my dogs were chasing people on bikes. My dogs don't even own bikes.
Did you know the first French fries weren't actually cooked in France? They were cooked in Greece.
Oh.
Who wrote that one?
I tried to eat a clock the other day. It was really time consuming. Wah, wah.
Who was the smallest person in the Bible? Nehemiah.
Need an ark? I know a guy.
How does Moses start his morning? Anybody? He brews a pot of coffee. Jeez, nice.
Can February march? No, but April may.
Who was the greatest comedian in the Bible? Samson. He brought the house down. Yeah.
Those are awfully good. Just like what I grew up with.
Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the cross. My debt to pay, from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the cross. My debt to pay, from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the cross.
Well, hello, Hopewell family. Today, I am coming to you from my workshop in my basement of my house. I can't remember if I've talked to you guys from here. I did a lot of messages and lessons for school and for classes when social distancing was at its highest and when school was in session. And, a lot of my lessons and a lot of my sermons and messages and various teaching moments, they're all kind of running together on me at this point. So I can't remember if I've come to you from this place of my house or not. But this is my workshop. It's just a little, 8x10 closet type deal in my basement, but it's kind of my thinking spot. And, it's good to come down here because it's kind of a retreat from things. If you haven't heard, we do in fact have a new baby. And, as soon as we open the building up and we start to meet inside, hopefully you guys can meet him. I'm sure that many of you are actually meeting him in person today if you're at the drive-in service. So Boston Paul is his name, and on Monday he made his grand appearance at 9:40 in the evening. Labor was easy for Beth, according to her, not to me. I will never make that claim. But she said that labor was pretty easy and mostly painless because of some great medicine and a great doctor, a great anesthesiologist. And so Boston Paul is now with us, and Judah is still trying to figure out what it means, to have this little guy in our house with us. He keeps saying baby, 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 but there is no sign that he really understands what's actually going on. I want to give you a little bit of a life update as I transition to my message here. So Friday night at St. Joseph Christian, we had our graduation. And it was an awesome time. But it was rough on me because this was the first class that I ever had as a high school teacher that was graduating. And on the flip side, for them, I was their first ever high school teacher. And they just are an incredible class. I'm their senior class sponsor. For some reason, they chose me to have the honor of being their sponsor, and I couldn't be more grateful for that because I love those kids as if they were my own. And I said this in my speech to them, but it was, 2 or 3 months now ago that I was really excited and anticipating spring break's arrival because I needed a little bit of a break or a hiatus to just kind of reset and recalibrate and take a few days off. Man, now I wish it would have never come. But, here we are, and Friday night we celebrated their graduation, and I got the honor of being their keynote speaker at the service. And I want to share a story with you because I think it highlights what I'm about to preach to you here today out of 2 Corinthians chapter 2. These kids, they were tremendous students. Well, at least the girls were. Let's put it that way. When I first started at St. Joseph Christian, I had kind of rehearsed this tough guy, strict teacher spiel for my first day of class because that's what I was advised to do. I don't know if Mike or any of you other teachers or former teachers can relate to this, but I was given a book by a curriculum administrator, and she told me, she said, Andrew, when you start this new journey and when you start this experience of teaching, she said, you are going to want to capture them in those first 3 weeks with the 3 R's: rules, rubrics, and procedures, basically. So not 3 R's, but these 3 main ideals: rules, rubrics, and procedures. And if you can instill what is expected of your students in this time, then it'll set the tone for the rest of the year and there won't be any other questions. They'll just know every day when you reinforce these things, this is what's expected of us through the rest of the year. And so I had kind of rehearsed this strict teacher spiel and, had come in guns blazing, ready to tear up the world as a new teacher. And, these little girls, they came in for first period Bible. It was an all-girls class. The only time in the senior high that we ever divide up to strictly boys class and strictly girls class is 9th grade Bible. These little bitty girls walk in and they're giggling and they're having a good time, and then immediately when they see me, they stop giggling and you know, it's like deer in the headlights look, and they kind of meander into class and they don't want to say anything. And I've been told I definitely came across as strict and intimidating. The problem was it was hard to keep up that tough guy act because those sweet little girls captured me basically from the first day, and after the first week they had me hook, line, and sinker. The boys, on the other hand, they were a completely different story, where the girls were sweet and funny and elegant, and you know, they just won you over. The boys were the polar opposites. They came in after PE, so they were always sweaty, they were always smelly, they rose the collective temperature of my room about 5 degrees afterwards. They were wild, they didn't pay attention, and everything was just a big joke to them. Well, eventually the boys won me over too, but it took some time. The girls, they had they definitely walked in humility. The boys, on the other hand, they didn't so much, and that's why it took the boys so long to win me over. Well, the boys treated the girls throughout their middle school experience, which I wasn't there for. I didn't get to see it and experience it. I could only go off secondhand knowledge. But the girls said that the boys had mistreated them and, you know, didn't want to associate with them, didn't want to even act like they were their friends. And in the meantime, the girls, it wasn't like a girl on boy crush type thing. It was more like, we like these boys. They're nice kids, but they don't want to be friends with us, and we don't understand that. And it really hurt them. And the boys would try so hard to not be friends with them that they would say things that they didn't mean about them, but were very mean-spirited. And the girls one day, in particular, in Bible class, I asked them, you know, how's your relationship with others? You know, we're talking about things like forgiveness and how the body of Christ should act. And if there's division in the body, then that means that in a way you're kind of cut off from God if there's division in the body. And the girls said, well, we feel like we get along great with each other, but they said there's this rift between us and the boys. And we don't know how to fix that. Said we want to be friends with them, but they're just so mean to us. We don't know what to do, and we don't really want to be around them, but yet at the same time we do. And so they're asking me, they're like, Coach, what do we do? Well, this was not my idea, so I can't take credit for it. But when I was working, actually, I was still a student at Northwest Missouri State and going to our BSU, the college ministry that we support as a church, and we kind of had the same thing going on at our BSU. The guys were all about sports, and we were super competitive, and the girls didn't understand a lick of that and didn't like it, and they definitely thought that we mistreated them, and we probably did. Well, the girls decided that they were going to get at us by blessing us, and so one night they cooked us all dinner. They called it Feeding the 5,000. There definitely weren't 5,000 guys, maybe lucky to be 15 to 20. But man, they definitely got their message across. Well, I kind of took that idea that those girls came up with, and I implemented it with these little girls, these little 9th graders at St. Joseph Christian. I said, girls, maybe the best way to get the boys' attention is to serve them. And they were like, well, what do you mean? And I told them the story that I just told you about Northwest Missouri State and those girls there at the BSU. And one of the girls piped up and said, we should serve them breakfast, because the boys had second hour with me. The girls were first hour, the boys were second hour. They said we should serve them breakfast. You know, we could talk to Coach W. She's the health and PE teacher, and the girls and boys would flip-flop. The girls would go from Bible to health, the boys would go from health into Bible. Said maybe we can get Coach W on board, and she'll let us out of health, and we can come and serve the boys. And so sure enough, we got Coach W on the same page, and she was all for it. And the girls went to Dunkin' Donuts early that morning, got about 2 or 3 dozen donuts, with their own money, went and bought some juice, and wrote the boys handwritten letters explaining to them, you know, just what men of God they were. And they didn't even talk about the bad things that they saw in these boys, the mean-spiritedness. They wanted to point out the true, you know, way that they saw them in their interactions away from the girls, that they really were men of God, that they cared for each other, that they were brave, that they were daring, and they wanted to highlight those things. And so the day comes when the girls come to serve the boys, and they completely surprise them. They walk in, the boys are having class with me, and I couldn't stand the boys at this time because they were just so obnoxious and rude in class. And all of a sudden the girls walk in with these donuts and glowing smiles on their faces. And not smiles like, we're going to get you good today. Smiles like, we can't wait to serve you smiles. And so that's exactly what they did. They came in, they served them donuts, they passed them out drinks, they refilled their drinks, they handed them these letters. And the boys were dead quiet. You could have heard a pin drop as this was going on. And as the boys sat there and ate their donuts and drank their juice and read their handwritten letters, many of them, their heads sank in shame, really, because they knew. When the girls left, immediately one of the boys, a boy named John Gregory, pipes up and he says, "Coach, we got to do something for them. And honestly, it's got to be bigger and better than this, because we have not treated them well enough to deserve this. I don't know why they did this." And so we had a great discussion following that on how, one, we could serve the girls and, kind of bless them in return, but two, how could our attitudes change from there on? When I think of this story, I think of life change, because that's exactly what happened for these boys. The relationship between the boys and the girls of this year's graduating senior class, when they were freshmen, it didn't become perfect overnight, but it got a whole lot better. And their relationship through the rest of their 3.5 years at St. Joseph Christian, it really was great. Again, it wasn't perfect, and believe it or not, we had to have another donut moment later on their junior year. Funny side note, but it just so happened to be one boy's first day ever at St. Joe Christian that day, and so he was thinking, we get donuts every day now. This must be how this Christian school operates. But he definitely thought that was incredible that the girls would serve the boys this way, and it captivated him. The relationship wasn't perfect, but it definitely got their attention. These little girls, like I said, they got me hook, line, and sinker from the first week because of the attitudes that they displayed, and the forgiveness that they were willing to emulate and walk in. And when I think of that story, it reminds me of one of my favorite passages from the New Testament in 2 Corinthians chapter 2. Paul is addressing the Corinthian church, and if you can remember times when I've talked about them or times when Mike has talked about them, one of the characteristics that marked them was they followed these false preachers, and these false preachers pulled the Corinthians away from the truth and the gospel and the right way to act. And so Paul is rebuking them. But one of the things that Paul says in chapter 2 is, listen, you need to, if people are repentant from this mindset, the way in which they've been taken captive by these false teachers, if they repent, then you need to forgive them and you need to accept them back. You need to bring them back into the fold. And if you forgive them, I will know that it is legit and I will forgive them as well. Really, we all know that forgiveness has to happen, even if there's not an apology and even if people aren't sorry. But this is talking about a restoration process to the church. And Paul's saying they need to be restored. But this is what he goes on to say in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. He says, "But thanks be to God, who in Christ always leads us in triumphal procession, and through us spreads the fragrance of the knowledge of him everywhere. For we are the aroma of Christ to God among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. To one, a fragrance from death, and to the other, a fragrance from life to life." What Paul is getting at here is that we are the fragrant aroma of Christ. When you think of something that is fragrant, you think of something that smells good, right? You don't ever want to be around something that smells bad. You can't see it right now because of where I've got the camera angle, but I am drenched in sweat because I just got back from working out at the gym. And when I lived in Maryville, that was one of the things that I loved to do the most. I wouldn't say that I was like a bodybuilder or anything, but I was really, really into fitness. When Mike first met me, I weighed about 50 pounds less than what I weigh right now. I just loved to work out. It was my escape from everything. Well, at the gym that I worked out at in Maryville, they had this sauna. And, a sauna is like a hot room that you go into to work up a sweat. And it's basically like getting cardio exercise in, burning calories away without actually having to do any work, because it raises your internal temperature so much that you're burning calories at a higher rate than when you're just sitting in like an air conditioned room. And The problem is, though, that you sweat a whole lot. And I'll never forget it. There was this one time, and I don't want to give you any bad ideas or make you think that this was like, this wrong encounter or anything. This sauna sat just off the edge of the gym in a well-lit area, and everybody in the gym could see into it. But it was this big box that people would go and sit in, and it would house 4 or 5 people. Well, I was in there once, and it was not uncommon that, a girl might walk into the sauna. You were fully clothed and everything, but a girl might walk into the sauna. Well, usually what the case was, if there was nobody else in the gym, I would get out and leave if a girl walked in, just because in the world we live in today, I didn't want to ever be accused of anything that I was not about. But if there were multiple people in the gym, it was so well lit, you could hear conversation going on in this sauna. I wasn't ashamed or afraid to be in there with a girl or with any other people for that matter. Well, it just so happens that this one girl walks in and she's about to get in the sauna, and all of a sudden I see her nose kind of start to wrinkle up. I've been in there for about 45 minutes and I'm really about to get out, but I see her do this. And she got out and she walked out of the room that the sauna sat in just off the gym. You know what happened? As humility would have it, she caught a whiff of me because I've been sitting in the sauna at 160 degrees for 45 minutes, and I was probably a little bit ripe, if you know what I mean. She didn't want to be in there. If you're around something that smells, you don't want to be around it, right? Nobody likes the smell of a skunk. If you do, you're weird. Nobody likes the smell of death. Like a dead animal or something on the side of the road. Every time you drive by it, it stinks and you don't want to be around it. I've got this problem. When I sweat a lot, I stink a lot. I don't know if any of my brothers out there can resonate with that. But when you sweat, you stink. Nobody wants to be around that. But man, everybody loves to be around something that smells good. I remember when I was growing up and you guys know that I love to hunt. Well, my grandma would make biscuits and gravy every morning when I'd come back from my hunt. And you could smell it from hundreds of yards away because of the way that their house was set up and because of the way that their chimney was set up. I could smell it as I was coming over the ridge, the fresh biscuits and gravy cooking in Grandma's house. And I could definitely smell it. When you would hit the door, it would just invade you. And man, every time I would smell it, it was like, a memory was being triggered. I can still smell it. Have you ever been in one of those places or around somebody and either their scent that they always have invades your senses, or that place that you're walking into, it invades your senses and it brings back a memory. Maybe when you walk into school, maybe when you walk into the church, maybe, when you walked into Grandma's house or something like that when you were growing up. And those are positive things. Those positive smells bring positive memories. Positive smells are something that we want to be around. Well, here Paul is telling us that we are the fragrant aroma of Christ to a dying world. Guys, if we are to be God's people, we have to smell good. Now, I'm not talking about physical smells. I'm talking about the smell of our attitudes. People carry an attitude, and it's like a smell to people. If you have a bad attitude, nobody wants to be around you. But if you have a good attitude, everybody loves to be around you. The girl who first thought this idea up to serve the guys at Northwest Missouri State, her name was Anna. And Anna was one of the sweetest people I've ever been around. Everybody loved to be around her. It was not uncommon for her to cook all of the guys and many of the girls lunch in her apartment after church on a Sunday afternoon and spend a ton of money doing it. Everybody loved to be around Anna because she carried this fragrant aroma of Christ. Sure, she probably smelled good, as a person, but her attitude was so captivating that people just wanted to be around it. They wanted to be in her presence. It was the same with these little girls at St. Joseph Christian. They definitely didn't smell bad like the boys did after PE, but man, their attitudes, people just wanted to be around them. It's what captivated me. It's what captivated my wife as well. Beth was actually induced into labor on Monday to make sure that we were there for graduation on Friday because she wanted to be there to see that as well, because many of those little girls have grown up into her friends. And we love those kids because they exhibit this exact behavior. Paul's going to go on to say here that we're the aroma of him everywhere. The aroma to some, we're the aroma of those who are being saved, and to some, the aroma of those who are perishing. What Paul is saying here as he's talking about this triumphal procession and this aroma, and how we're the smell to some, we're the smell of life to some, we're the smell of those who are perishing, but we are the smell of life to all of these people. What he's getting at here is he's drawing a parallel to the Roman world. In the Roman world, when the Romans would win a victory, they would launch these huge parades throughout the city of Rome. And not everybody would be able to come to these. So what they would do is, if you couldn't come to the actual streets where the victory processions after battle, when all of this was going on, they would light these huge incense candles, these huge fires in the streets, and it would burn throughout the city so that everybody, whether you were there at the parade or you couldn't make it, you were at your home, you were at your place of work, you were sick, it didn't matter. The smell of the triumphal procession and the incense that was being burned, it would invade the whole city so that everybody would know that Rome had won a great victory. And for them, it was the aroma of life, the aroma of victory. Guys, that's what we are to be. We are to be the aroma of Christ to a dying world. We are to be the smell of victory to the people that we encounter. Our attitudes have to reflect Jesus. But on the flip side, when those parades would be launched throughout the city and throughout the streets, they would also bring in the captives, the captors that they got through battle, the new prisoners, and they would parade them through the streets. And for those prisoners, those smells, it was a smell of death. It was a smell that something needed to change in a hurry, that they needed to get their affairs in order. And guys, in the same way, Paul is telling us here that we also need to be that smell to people. That we are so captivating, and the truth, it permeates through us so much that it makes people realize we're cut off from where we should be. We need to get on the right side, that we for so long served the wrong side, and for these captives, it was pretty much too late. You know, many of them were going to die. Some of them might be set free, but many of them were going to die. We need to be that to a dying world. We need to be a lighthouse, a beacon of hope, that you don't need to be on the wrong side anymore. Yes, you've been over here for so long, but you don't have to be. We invite you. We want you with us. Join with us in the triumphal victory. That's the difference between the Christian and the Roman world that Paul's getting at here. You know, we are to be the aroma of life. We are to be the sweet smell of Jesus, the smell of victory to those that have been cut off from him. Bring them into the fold. So I have to ask us, is our aroma, is it one that stinks? Is it going to turn people away like it did that girl in the gym one day? Or is it sweet? Is it going to captivate people? Is it going to bring people in? You know, my wife is one of the sweetest people you could ever meet. It's one of the things that captivated me about her. On top of that, she made me a lot of desserts before we ever started dating because she was trying to win me over. If you can't tell, it worked out because, like I said, I put on about 50 pounds since my wife and I got married. Well, that was part of that sweet aroma of who my wife is. She lives to serve. She lives to be a servant to others. And she's the fragrant aroma of Christ. That's what won me over. We should all be more like my wife, if you ask me. Be a little bit less like me. Don't be the smelly guy. Be the sweet-smelling little girl. Be the sweet-smelling ninth grader. Be the sweet-smelling Anna from our ministry in Maryville. Be the sweet-smelling Apostle Paul. Be the sweet-smelling aroma of Jesus. Our attitudes have to reflect him. So Hopewell family, I hope that you get a lot out of this, and I hope that we will be the fragrant aroma of Christ. And just so you know, I absolutely see that. You know, the phrase that sits on our board outside of the church, be the church that people want to come to or that people want to be, we definitely, I see that in you. But just let this be a gentle reminder that this should be us always. I know that I fall very short of that, but that's what we need to be. So let's go and do that. Be the fragrant aroma of Christ to those who are perishing, but also to the saved. Let our our attitudes reflect Jesus always and build others up. It's in Jesus' name.
I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whispers of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, it's love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call